Flossie had become as much a fixture of the park as were all the trees and the many different creatures that lived there. She could be seen skipping and dancing barefoot across the grassy slopes, with bunches of wild flowers and twigs and leaves cradled in her arms and tangled in her long bushy hair, with a look of constant wonder in her smiling eyes. Sometimes her joy grew so big it spilled out of her in a torrent of words she couldn't control.
A lake as gorgeous as a birthday cake. Trees everywhere smiling down on me. Swans and ducks greeting me with their funny clucks. And was grass ever greener, even in dreams?
She was one of those children it's almost impossible to put an exact age to. She could have been any age between 8 and 80, depending on her moods and feelings of the day. Most people guessed she was about 11 or 12, still a child and not yet grown up, although even that was open to discussion. Whatever, she was simply Flossie, and you had to take her as she came. Or how she cried out loud now and again.
Oh, what a ringing, singing, dinging world! I can feel a rainbow going in my heart, and every tree looks like a poem waiting to be written and then shouted out aloud. And who knows what hidden treasures are waiting to be found in every shady corner of my park. I really feel alive on such a lovely day.
That then is a quick portrait of Flossie, a charming snippet of a young, wild girl about to become the heroine of this story, although she doesn't know it yet. She would discover treasures and secrets she could never imagine, as well as having wild adventures that would shake up and brighten the life of any child. It began one bright morning when she went to the spinney at the far end of the lake. She hadn't noticed the many curious pairs of eyes that stared out at her from the shady darkness. Eyes that watched her every move while listening to her every word as she entered the leafy copse. She was greeted by a bevy of birdsong, with the occasional squirrel staring beseechingly at her with wide open eyes, hoping for a few nuts. She usually carried a bag of nuts with her to give to them. But on that morning, she simply felt the need to lose herself for a while in the semi-dark and shady atmosphere of the spinney, gazing lovingly at the trees and bushes that were so familiar to her. She strolled around, hugging and talking to her favourite trees, caressing and smelling all the wildflowers, and mimicking the many different bird songs which she knew by heart, having listened to them so many times while growing up in this place.
It always feels like there's something mysterious in here. A sort of light that's not quite lit but not quite out either. A place for secret meetings and fairy dances and magical spells in the moonlight, when the rest of the world is fast asleep. A place for dreams to be born and then come true.
Wandering ever deeper into the heart of the spinney, she stopped in front of a thicket. She thought she'd heard a growling noise coming from somewhere deep inside it. She also noticed that all the birds had suddenly stopped singing.
Am I imagining things, or did I really just hear that noise right now?
Her curiosity now aroused, she stood listening for a few moments. She heard a soft rustling coming from inside the thicket, and then another muted growl reached her ears.
Well, there's definitely something in there, but what can it be? I've never heard a squirrel growl like that before, nor any croaky frog, and if it was a stray dog, I think it would just bark at me. It does feel like something's watching me right now, though, so maybe I should take a closer look.
She edged forward, a little hesitant and half afraid, but also with an air of defiance about her. Shading her eyes, she peered into the thicket again.
Ha! I knew it. There is something in there, and it's staring right at me while I'm looking at it. I can see a pair of eyes watching me. Big, green eyes, wide open. Well, Mr. or Mrs. Green Eyes, I know how to stare hard like that as well. Don't you know? Just watch me.
A few minutes passed like that, with Flossie staring hard into the thicket, slowly moving closer, but with caution. Then she heard another muffled growl, followed by a soft purring noise, and she felt quite relieved at that.
Ah, I think you're just a cat then, eh? Purring away like that. But I do like cats, so you needn't to be frightened of me. I've got a cat at home actually. His name's Mugsbane and he's black all over with big green eyes just like yours. So you shouldn't feel shy of me. My name's Flossie, by the way, if you were wondering. And I really don't mind if you want to show yourself now. I'm not in the least dangerous, I promise. So why won't you come out? Come on, puss, puss, puss.
She gestured with a hand and repeated her welcoming call, feeling a lot more at ease now. But she wasn't at all expecting what happened next. Because a huge tiger's head suddenly thrust itself out from the thicket, its mouth wide open to display a pair of glistening and very sharp-looking fangs. At the same time, it released an ear-shattering roar that made Flossie cry out in alarm and fall abruptly onto her bottom, overcome with surprise. She did manage to let out a soft scream then, but more from astonishment than actual terror.
Hey, well that's just fantastic. I thought you might be a cat, and maybe a bit wild, but, well, blow me down. I never imagined you'd be a big one like a blooming stripy tiger.
The tiger stared hard at the girl and growled softly, almost affectionately, or so she imagined, as she sat slumped where she'd fallen, lost now in wonder and total amazement.
I just hope you're not very hungry, that's all. But who would have imagined finding a tiger in the park, eh? No one would believe me if I told them, that's for sure. A real tiger in the park, right here in the middle of Spinney. And it's me who found you.
The tiger wrinkled his eyes and growled softly again, as she sat there smiling up at him, looking quite unafraid now, despite the unusual situation.
Well, hello, Mr. Tiger. I'm Flossie, a girl, and some people say I'm a bit wild as well, but I'm not. Not really. At least not very much. And I'm very pleased to meet you here like this. At least I think I am.
The tiger appeared to smile back at her then, before throwing back its head and releasing an even louder roar. She wanted to believe it was for her benefit. She smiled warmly back at him.
Good morning, Flossie.
The tiger replied then, much to her total astonishment. Could tigers actually speak?
I'm also very pleased to meet you here like this.
And that's how Flossie came to meet a tiger in the spinney, in the park, early one morning, and quite unexpectedly, although she felt certain from the start that it was somehow meant to be. She still hadn't noticed the many hidden eyes that were watching all this with an ever-growing interest.